This is the CBC Morning Report for today, Wednesday, August 16th. I'm Tisha Hines. Good morning. In our top story, the World Health Organization is expecting an increase in dengue cases worldwide. Here in Barbados, up to mid-July, there were only 7 confirmed cases of dengue fever, but many suspected cases. Dr. Leslie Rollock, Senior Medical Officer of Health, tells the Morning Report that some cases may not make the statistics, as many symptoms are also those of influenza.
Barbados is endemic for dengue, which means we always have cases. When we start to worry is when we have more than expected. And up until this, say, mid-July, we only had 7 confirmed cases. And confirmed cases means we had blood tests on those persons. PCR tests were done on those blood samples, and those blood samples revealed dengue fever virus. However, we've been having many suspected cases, which means persons go to the doctor says, based on your symptoms, I believe that you have dengue. Unfortunately, many of them are not doing blood tests. So we don't have a lot of confirmed cases, but we have many suspected cases for the year. We don't have a lot of hospitalized confirmed cases either. So around this time of the year, we expect numbers to increase. But as far as to say that we have an outbreak situation, I really can't say, even though we are seeing increased numbers of suspected cases.
Now, Dr. Rollock could not give any specific reasons for why individuals do not test, but they have been asking doctors to encourage patients to be tested in order to get a more accurate national picture.
I would encourage the physicians that see these patients, if they believe that they have dengue, to take a blood sample, especially if that blood sample is taken within 5 days of the onset of symptoms. If it gets to the lab in a good time, we would be able to do PCR tests on it and be able to tell that person definitively whether they have dengue or not. Because the symptoms of dengue are similar to symptoms, some of them for influenza, for example, body aches, headache, fever. And until with influenza, the person develops a cough or some other respiratory signs, it's difficult to say what they have. So the issue may be that if they go to a private doctor, they may have to pay more for it. But in the public sector, they don't have to pay more for it. They may just not want a blood draw. But it would help us to know what is going on if we had a few more, not everyone, but if we had a few more blood tests to work with.
And the main type of dengue being presented has been the type 1 virus. But as Dr. Rollock explains, there are 4 types, and depending on what the patient had before, it could lead to more severe cases.
Each of those individual types gives you regular dengue. Some persons are infected and they have no symptoms at all. Then each of those individual viruses can give you moderate symptoms, and each of those individual viruses can give you severe symptoms. So it is not the type, the virus itself that determines whether you get hemorrhagic fever, not usually. However, because there are 4 types, if you get dengue fever with type 1, for example, you should be immune to type 1. You should never get type 1 again in your life. It may give you partial protection from type 2. But if you get type 2 dengue and you have had type 1, the antibodies that you had developed to type 1 to protect you may not protect you fully, and may actually increase the risk of you getting more severe dengue. And some of the manifestations of that severe dengue may include hemorrhagic signs, which is hemorrhagic dengue. So there's no dengue virus that is a hemorrhagic dengue virus. All of them may cause hemorrhagic disease.
The doctor says the entire country is a watch area for the Aedes aegypti mosquito, and she's encouraging everyone to get rid of water collection areas because these are the breeding sites. The Ministry of Health is also keeping up with its fogging program to deal with the adult mosquitoes. Meanwhile, in Bangladesh's ongoing 2023 dengue epidemic season, the country has been witnessing the deadliest outbreak of dengue fever. The Directorate General of Health Services has reported 87,891 hospitalizations and 416 deaths due to the Aedes aegypti-borne tropical disease.
As the monsoon rains intensify across Bangladesh, along with high humidity and heat, there are fears that dengue fever outbreak will get worse. Nazma Akhtar had to rush her 11-year-old son to a private hospital because she couldn't find any accommodation in a government-run hospital, a medical emergency increasingly becoming common across the country.
After he was diagnosed with dengue, within a day we rushed him to the hospital after he was going into shock. His blood platelet count dropped to a critical point and he had very low blood pressure. He is now recovering very slowly.
But many here can't afford to take their children to a private hospital.
The government should take more steps to eradicate mosquitoes. It's just not adequate, and city corporations should take more steps to keep things more hygienic and clean. I had to break my savings bond to bear the hospital expense.
The World Health Organization is calling on Bangladesh to control its mosquito population and minimize people's exposure to the mosquito-borne diseases. The increase in dengue cases is causing alarm among people in Dhaka and other places, and doctors in many hospitals are struggling to cope with the rising number of patients. Munir Hussain is a physician who says this outbreak is unlike his seen before. There's now an increasing number of children who are getting admitted to hospitals with fluid buildup in their vital organs, causing refractory shock and eventual death.
This time the dengue situation is very critical, unlike before. Both the doctors and patients are facing much more challenging clinical issues compared to previous years.
The World Health Organization is also warning cases of dengue fever worldwide could reach record highs this year, partly due to global warming, and that half of the world population is now at risk of contracting dengue. In Bangladesh, experts say erratic weather condition and poor drainage and sanitation are partly to blame for the rise in dengue and have urged the government for more coordinated and efficient response to deal with the crisis.
Coming up on the CBC Morning Report, charred bodies are making it hard to identify the dead in Hawaii.
For the past 19 years, QFM has been sharing with you, learning from you, and together building a community for all mature audiences. That's why we say Q is good for you. To our Q family, we say thank you for staying connected to Q 100.7 FM. QFM is a station of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. CBC, celebrating 60, connecting Barbadian communities.
While you go about your business, we go about our business, and that is gathering the news. Stay up to date at CBC News Barbados on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get news update on radio throughout the day. And join us for the CBC News Night at 7 every night. CBC News team is on the job and bringing you the news.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated?
The search for missing people continues in Hawaii 1 week after devastating blazes erupted on the island of Maui, causing widespread devastation. Reports are that identifying the dead has been a hard task, as over 1,000 people are unaccounted for.
A team of 90 personnel and 20 cadaver dogs have been searching through the wreckage of Lahaina. and they have made some progress. At the weekend, just 3% of the town had been searched. Now the figure is 25%. The problem has been identifying the human ashes left behind. Over 1,000 people remain unaccounted for.
We actually have 3 positive identifications from fingerprints. 3. So I don't have more than 3. So there's 96 that we don't have fingerprints.
The process of informing relatives of those identified will begin on Tuesday. Residents of Lahaina, though, are expressing their frustration at not being allowed to return to assess the damage themselves.
Our temple is, is a historical site, and we do have some things that I saw that are made out of metal and stone that are still remaining, and I just want to make sure that we are able to secure those things. And we've already dealt with so much heartache. It's just like to have to deal with more heartache on top of that. It's just, I would like to be able to secure it, the things that are left.
But it's because authorities believe that human remains are distributed widely throughout the rubble, access remains restricted.
They have to be very careful not to disrupt any of the homes there. So for those people who have walked into Lahaina because they really wanted to see, know that they are very likely walking on Evie, as the chief of police said the other day. That's why we're being so careful.
The Maui police chief says he's hopeful that 85 to 95% of the some 2,200 damaged structures in Lahaina will have been searched by the weekend, although he says that timeline may slip. The message has remained consistent from authorities over the last several days. Expect the death toll to rise. Shia Bertansi, Al Jazeera, Lahaina, Maui.
Shihab is with us now live. Shihab, given the level of destruction that we've been seeing in the pictures and the care that they're having to take as they search through the destruction of the homes and so on, the fact they've actually got 25% of it covered is really pretty astonishing.
And the Maui police chief is hopeful that they will make a lot more progress by the end of this week. But with that then comes that expectation of an exponentially rising death toll, the expectation now for 10 to 20 sets of human remains to be discovered each day. The governor saying he expects the death toll possibly to have doubled within the next 10 days.
Donald Trump's 4th criminal indictment has raised new questions around the political landscape in the U.S. But analysts say it is unlikely to have an immediate effect on the former president's push for the Republican Party's 2024 nomination. The indictment in Georgia, which ensnares Trump and 18 associates in connection with efforts to meddle with the 2020 vote results in the state, fits into the ex-president's oft-repeated claims that he's being systematically targeted by partisan political elites.
For the 4th time, a grand jury has indicted former President Donald Trump for alleged crimes against the country he governed.
Thank you.
Leading this series of indictments against Trump and others, racketeering, a charge that usually targets organized crime rings, in this case for an alleged conspiracy to steal the state's presidential election.
The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result.
Also indicted, 18 others, including former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Trump lawyer Rudolph Giuliani, former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark, and former aide John Eastman. The alleged conspiracy included a series of phone calls in which Trump pressured Georgia officials to overturn Joe Biden's presidential election victory in the state, including this notorious call to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
That alleged conspiracy also included false accusations and harassment of election workers, including Ruby Freeman, who said she had to go into hiding after Trump fans invaded her grandmother's home to make what they called a citizen's arrest. It also contained false allegations of ballot fraud.
And this was an election that we won easily. We won it by a lot.
The alleged plot also contained a fake electors scheme in which Trump-backed electors tried to form a false slate of electors who sought to flip the state of Georgia for Trump after his loss. And it involved an extraordinary data breach in rural Coffee County, where Trump partisans were called in to scan votes in a fruitless search for massive fraud. Georgia was just one of several states Trump would have needed to win the 2020 election. But Georgia was a special case. It tended to lean Republican, and he lost by a small margin, a margin he asked Georgia state Republicans to make up to overturn his loss there. The Trump campaign issued a lengthy statement stating in part, they could have brought this 2.5 years ago, and they chose to do this for election interference reasons in the middle of President Trump's successful campaign. The indictment is the fourth in as many months. Trump faces state charges in New York for a hush money payment to silence a porn star ahead of the 2016 election, and 2 federal indictments, in Florida for mishandling classified documents, and in Washington for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Unlike the federal charges, if proved, the Georgia state charges cannot be pardoned by the next president.
It's time now to preview what's coming up on Morning Barbados at 6:30. In the next chapter, we're going to be telling you all about Dr. Linda Ince Greenaway. She has a book by the name of Hard Truth, Growing Out of Adversity, and she's going to share how the book was developed. We're also telling you about the Vernon and Maria House. They will be in our community and serving us in the only way they know how. So that's coming up. We'll tell you where. In the Let's Talk HR segment, today we're looking at self-care and mental health with the HR professionals of HERMAB. You definitely don't want to miss that. And of course, we are also connecting with a young lady who's developed a very interesting brand that's taking people on travel around the world. It's called Black Girls Travel Too. That's all at 6:30. But coming up next, we have more news, sports, and weather. So stay with us.
Enjoy movies, soaps, drama, comedy, inspiration, education, music, and more. You get it all when you get MCTV, because MCTV gives you more.
Some ask, what makes Barbados so special? We at Mornin Barbados say it's you, our exceptional youth. You are talented, resilient, and inspirational. You are the epitome of the Barbadian spirit, testing the boundaries of your creativity. If you are an entrepreneur, artist, baker, designer, author, or have done anything you think should be highlighted, email us at morninbarbados@cbc.bb. Let us show the world our exceptional Bajan youth.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Mornin Barbados would love to feature your book in our The Next Chapter segment. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.bb. That's morning without the G. Come and let us turn those pages.
Local insurance companies are making a case for the rollout of driver retraining and the demerit system to curb the high number of accidents on the road. This as they believe many of the crashes are avoidable. We hear more in this Sharika Griffith report.
Distracted driving, exiting side roads when it's not safe to do so, and the improper use of roundabouts are among the reasons given for many of the thousands of accidents Barbados records each year.
Practice has meant that every roundabout to a driver in Barbados now is a jam buster roundabout, which is not the case, right? If you spend time at the Warrens roundabout or anyone in any given day, you will see a number of vehicles entering that second lane and going in all directions, right? So and that creates a lot of accidents because drivers exiting from other areas see you in the middle lane and assume that you're going in the approved direction.
President of the General Insurance Association of Barbados, Randy Graham, highlighting some of the factors contributing to the insurance sector paying out more than $100 million on an average 7,000 to 8,000 vehicular accidents annually. He's making a case for the implementation of a demerit system for repeat offenders as well as retraining.
If it is that you are showing a trend of negligence consistently on the road or more than one occasion, there's a point where the record reflects that you do need to go and get defensive training or you need retraining. Many of us have our license. We spend a lot of time getting the license and then we never go back for training for 30 years, right? Or 20, 30, 40 years. That's not a feasible situation. We all need to remember some of the training at times, and the merit system is probably something that we need to investigate. I think that has acted in other territories as a deterrent for persons to pay attention because no one wants to have their license suspended.
The insurance executive suggests the Ministry of Transport and Works would be the entity to regulate this retraining, as it already oversees driving instructors and testing. He's also calling for the full rollout of breathalyzer testing.
In other territories where the breathalyzer is in place, it's a deterrent. No one wants to be caught driving under the influence. So because they know it's a reality that if they're pulled over, it doesn't have to be an accident. That if they're pulled over and they're ticketed or whatnot, it's a serious offense, and that acts as a deterrent. So if nothing else, we think that we would want the breathalyzer in place where drivers know that not only is it there to help reduce fatal accidents, but it's to help behavior on the roads, which means if you're drinking, don't get behind the wheel of the car.
Breathalyzer testing was initially to be rolled out in April 2022, but was deferred as officials wanted to ensure other things had been settled first, including metered taxi rates. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thank you, Sharika. Andre Elvis Foster has been remanded for 28 days. The 32-year-old from Clough St. Lucie appeared in court yesterday, charged with the Kaduma Day shooting, which involved a licensed firearm. He appeared in the District A Magistrates Court and was not required to plead to recklessly discharging a firearm in a public place. Blackrock Main Road, which placed the lives of Rashetta Phillips and Vincent Edwards in danger of death or serious bodily harm. Foster appeared before Magistrate Ian Weeks and was represented by Andrew Pilgrim KC and Angela Mitchell Gittins. He is to return to court on September 11th. In other police news, lawmen are investigating a matter which occurred at Vauxhall Christchurch, where a man accused of stealing was tied to a pole. This video has been making the rounds on social media, showing a substance being poured onto the accused man's head as he holds a sign between his teeth as people look on and jeer. Assistant Commissioner David Griffith confirmed to CBC that a report in relation to the incident has been made and it is under investigation. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling on the international community to act now and deploy a robust non-UN armed force to Haiti to support the national police in stopping the gang violence overwhelming the island nation.
Antonio Guterres has urged the Security Council to act now to give its backing. He says the situation isn't right to try peacekeeping. Gang violence has spiraled since the assassination of President Jovenel Moise in 2021. Kristen Salumi is live for us at the United Nations in New York. What's in the report, Kristen?
Well, the Secretary General elaborates on a plan that he first suggested last year, the creation of a non-UN police force to help get the gangs under control in Haiti. And in this report to the Security Council, which we've seen thanks to diplomats, he lays out the steps that are needed to make that happen, namely the Security Council coming forward and welcoming this force, which he says must be capable, must have military assets, well armed, and capable of taking robust action to control the gangs.
Let's move on to sports. It's back to work for Conde Riley after winning another term as president of the Barbados Cricket Association. CBC's Anne-Marie Burke reports on his post-election speech.
For the position of president, Conde Riley was re-elected, having received 75 votes to Calvin Niles, Calvin Hopes, 72, and Gregory Nichols, 37.
As you just heard, last evening at the 21st special meeting of members held at Kensington Oval, Conde Riley was returned as president of the Barbados Cricket Association. Riley defeated Calvin Hope and Senator Gregory Nichols for the BCA's top post in a close contest that saw him edge Hope by just 3 votes, 75 to 72. Senator Nichols was some way behind with 37 votes, but he's still on the executive as he was unopposed for the position of secretary. Speaking after retaining the top post, Riley said it's about continuing the work that he has started and extended an olive branch to his opponents to continue to manage and develop the sport locally as members of his team.
Things have changed and we have to tweak all the things that we have there. COVID came in and we had 2 years where there were some protocols that shut down cricket. But on top of that too, we developed the financial wherewithal where we help the clubs, repair clubs, we pay the umpires, and we now have about 30 guys on contract. We also have 25 guys in England out of the scholarships and placement. The Lord Galvin Scholarship has produced some wonderful young men, very bright and academic. So I'm pleased and I'm happy that the membership recognize the work that we have done. I reach out to the guys that run against me or run because I have to work with them. They're good men, they're young men, and I will move on and they'll have to take over and run this organization.
Henderson Wallace, Winston Stafford and Kamal Springer are the directors of the BCA Board of Management. Wallace, an incumbent, garnered 127 votes. Stafford, another incumbent, received 97, while Springer got 91. Both Stafford and Springer are ready to serve.
Well, I'm heartened to see that some people think that continuity is a very useful tool. And I think I still have a contribution to make, some unfinished business. And I will continue to do that business.
I'm humbled by the opportunity given to me by the membership of the organization. It's an opportunity for me to really give back to cricket. The incredible economic and social impact cricket has on this country, on this region is phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to serving with my colleagues and trying to do the best I can.
The other members of the BCA executive whose positions were not up for re-election last night were Vice President Calvin Hope, Treasurer Jason King, and board members Clement De Pisa and Pedro Graves.
Congratulations to the entire team. It's time to take a look at weather. The barometric pressure stands at 1010.3 millibars. It's currently 27.2 degrees Celsius outside. The relative humidity stands at 86%, and the winds are blowing out of the east at 24 kilometers per hour. Present temperature, fair with slight haze. Sea conditions for Barbados for today, smooth to moderate in open water with swells ranging from 1 to 2 meters and increasing. Here's a peek at how tides roll in. And the general forecast for Barbados. Sunny with cloudy periods with the occasional brief light showers. Into the evening, what you can expect is pretty much the same. Cloudy with clear periods with the occasional brief scattered light showers. And that's today's morning report. Our next newscast is Newsday at 12 noon on TV8, followed by The World at 1 on our radio network of stations 100.7 FM, 98.1 The One, and 94.7 FM. It's time now for Morning Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Good morning to you. It is Wednesday, August 16th. So good to have you in company for another presentation of Morning Barbados. I'm Tisha Hines and I'll be here with you until 8 o'clock this morning. I'm wondering if you had as good a night as mine, got a good night's rest. You know how it is in Barbados when you get a little rain outside, helps to cool things down a little bit. And of course, we sleep nicer. Sometimes people wake up a little later if it's raining. But for me, I got up a little earlier today, so thankful for that. And we're, of course, thankful for you for waking up and tuning in, turning on wherever you are across the world. We definitely will be reaching across the world in today's presentation to share with you, because we have Barbadians who have been or are all over the world, and some people who love Barbados as well who will be sharing with us today. But we're going to talk about Verdun and Marina House and the work that they'll be doing in the community with Letitia Wilcher, who is a senior mental health and addiction counselor with the house. She's going to be talking to us about initiatives that they are embarking on in the communities, which is much needed at this time. They're also going to talk about a helpline that we want to make sure members of the community are well aware of. Let's Talk HR is back today as we speak with the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados, and welcome Nicholas Roberts, who is the president of HERMAP, along with Dr. Naya Mon, who is a general adult psychiatrist, and they'll be in to talk mental health and self-care. Again, very important topics at this time, particularly where we're seeing an increase in suicides across the island, and usually people who are working don't pay enough attention to themselves. So we're going to talk about self-care and where human resources comes into play with that. Plus, we have a very interesting young woman who will be sharing with us today, Danny Rivers Mitchell, founder and CEO of Black Girl Travel 2. And she's also founder of a foundation called Serving in Paradise Foundation. Now, the interesting thing about her foundation is it's Barbados inspired. So she's going to share her amazing story of how she continues to travel across the globe and how it started with her love for Barbados. That's all coming up. So a very interesting story that you definitely will want to lock onto. In Doc Talk, we are going to meet up with Dr. Paul Rouse, a urologist, and we are going to be looking at men's health. Very important, and we love to do that to remind our gentlemen that they need to take care of themselves. So all that and so much more is coming up today, but we want to start first with the next chapter, which is our presentation, our segment that introduces you to local, regional, and international books. But we welcome a lady who was born right here in Barbados and grew up most of her formative years outside of Barbados. She wrote a book called Hard Truth, Growing Out of Adversity. Let's welcome Dr. Linda Inch Greenaway to Morning Barbados. Good morning.
Good morning, Tisha.
So good to have you with us.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
All right. First of all, you have to report where you are. Are you here in Barbados? Are you outside of the island?
Yes, I'm in England.
Okay, so you're in England, reaching back and sharing with us. So thanks for the time, even though you're a little further ahead than we are in the day.
Yes, I am. It's
all right,
mid-morning.
So, absolutely. So you started really your career as a social worker, pretty much.
Yes.
Or in the area of social work. So talk to me about your early life in England as a social worker and how we got to this point where you've written this book. Now, I know that this is your second book, I believe. You also wrote Making It Alone, which is your first presentation. Yes. But tell me how we got to this place with this particular book.
Okay, so as you say, I was trained as a social worker here in the UK, and it wasn't my choice initially, but I think because of what had happened to me in my own life, it was a career that I later chose, and I qualified and then became a practitioner in the childcare field. So working mostly with children and their families and working with child protection cases. I'm moving on very swiftly to management. So I managed social workers, again, in the same field. So I've always been in that field because I loved the interaction. I loved doing that type of work. But there did come a time when I decided that I didn't only want to be a practitioner. I wanted to have an impact on people's minds. I wanted to teach. So I moved across to academia, and I taught on the BA and the MA courses in social work for about 10, 15 years. I did that until I set up my business and offered freelance services to what we call here local authorities and fostering agencies. And that was how it all began. It began with me being a social worker, but I developed and grew out of it.
Absolutely, and a fantastic story it was, especially with you heading off to England at a time where it's now classified as the Windrush generation, moved over
Yes.
to England, and you were in the middle of that. Can we talk a little bit about that before we move on?
So the Windrush years were really, really difficult years. I came to England in 1965. At that time, my father had died, and that was the principal reason for my mum coming to England. She wanted to create a new life for us, her children. She had 6 of us with her when my dad died, and also she had 2 children here in the UK. So she decided to come and join them, and she left us behind for a year with a friend, which wasn't that pleasant kind of experience, but we did that, and within a year she paid the fare, and we came up to England to join her. So those Windrush years were very, very difficult years, because it was a time when we were not accepted in this country. You were treated very, very badly. People simply thought that you didn't belong here, and many phrases were used like, go back to where you come from. We were called very negative names. Sometimes I don't want to call them anymore because they were so terrible. But it had a major impact on my identity, but also my sense of confidence. You know, I lost a lot of confidence when I came here, feeling that I wasn't as good as other children, my compatriots, feeling that I didn't have anything to offer. And I just hid into the background. And a lot of the confidence that I'd had when I left Barbados, I just lost it, because I was really struggling with this new educational system, and fitting into that system was extremely difficult. So those Windrush years, I think, were years that a lot of us would say we don't want to have those years repeated, and we wouldn't like to see our children go through what I went through. Myself and my siblings, we went through a very, very difficult time, and getting out of that and moving forward took a lot of courage, took a lot of perseverance, determination, and so on, to actually grow out of it.
Is this what you've documented in the pages of this book, Hard Truth, Growing Out of Adversity?
It is, definitely it is. It's it's chapter number 3, where I talk about immigration and the cultural shift, and what the cultural shift meant for me, for my siblings, and how it felt, what it felt like. So I give readers a really good idea in that chapter of, you know, when people move, when they transition from one place to another, how difficult it is. So not only was I transitioning in terms of leaving Barbados, but I was also at that time coping with the loss of my dad, and coping with, you know, bereavement and loss and separation from my country of origin, and losing all of that. And so I talk about that in that chapter, and it's a very important chapter, yes, because it sets the scene, and it shows how I moved from where I was in the 60s to where I am today.
Dr. Ince Greenaway, they say history repeats itself, and somewhere within the pages of the book, you also talk about having to cope then with the loss of your husband as well. You know, pretty much grieving in the same way that you did for your father years before, and your mother would have. What part did that play in helping you to write this book as well?
It is a center, it's at the very heart of the book, because that experience of losing my husband, I'd lost him when I was almost 21 years old. I got married at 20, and I was pregnant with my son, and I lost him. He was a police officer. In fact, the second black police officer in this country. That's again about the Windrush years and how difficult it was because of lack of acceptance and how he was treated. But I quickly lost him. And that was what caused me to go back to what I call my Pandora's box, because when he died, I just plowed everything into this valise that he had come from Barbados with. And I just plowed it there and I left it. And I didn't open that box for about 40 years. And when I opened it, I thought, my goodness, this is my life. This is my hard truth. And that is what caused me then to write the book, because up until that time, I hadn't shared my experience in a public arena, if you like. And I hadn't talked to people about what that meant and the impact it had on my life, and so on. So that was the real cause for me writing the book, and to just show people how it is possible to grow out of adversity, even though it may take time. And for all of us, when we have to cope with death and grief, it takes different time, it takes a different time span. Mine was a long one, but in the meantime, I started to work on myself. And I think that was partly what helped me to come through it. But yes, it's definitely a critical aspect of the book. It's a critical aspect of the book. And it helps when readers come to that section of the book, they say to me, we couldn't stop crying. We couldn't stop crying because of what you'd gone through.
Wow, definitely a riveting story. And I want to thank you for really sharing your story in the pages of this book, Hard Truth, Growing Out of Adversity. And it's interesting that you're able to share the early years in Barbados and then how you made the transition and the challenges that you had and how you were able to overcome them, particularly by talking about the values that your mother shared, Christian values, underpinning really how you were able to get through those years. Remind us of where we can find the book, how we can get our hands on it. Very, very important. I think lots of Barbadians will want to read this book.
Well, you can get it on Amazon. Obviously, you can get it on Amazon. And I think anyone across the world can get the book there. Then I say to people, if you want to connect with me, you can actually get it from myself, or you can get it from the publishers. The publishers at the moment is the Choir Press here in England. So if people looked up the Choir Press, they would quickly get it there as well.
It's called The Hard Truth, Growing Out of Adversity. I want to thank you for sharing your story with us. And hopefully we'll be able to reconnect with you sometime to be able to delve a little deeper into the stories contained therein.
Okay, thank you. It would be my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, make sure you check out that book. Very interesting read, and you absolutely won't be disappointed. Lots of stories from Barbados to England and everything in between. Coming up, we're telling you all about Vernon and Marina House and how they are moving into the community. Stay with us.
Because you love English Premier League, MCTV has got it back. Now you can watch all the games of the English Premier League plus UEFA and NFL on MCTV. Current customers can upgrade to Max Pack Extra at just $23. Call MCTV today at 228-6288 to upgrade or come in and sign up for our new service. Football fans, let MCTV get you back in the game.
The facts say Morning Barbados reaches an audience of over 50,000 and Newsnight reaches over 56,000. It's simple. When you advertise, you're getting your message to over 50,000 of your potential customers. Make the call to CBC Sales Department today and watch your business grow. Contact us at 467-5559 or email marketing@cbc.bb.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Just about 15 minutes to go before the 7 o'clock hour. What are your big plans for today? I have to say a special good morning to those of you who are on holiday or leave or retirement, and you can just sleep in and look at the TV or get up and do something a little later. Whatever, you are the lucky ones today. So a big shout out to you. And those of you watching outside the island as well, always good to have you locked on. So have you ever heard of the Vernon and Marina House? I'm not sure if you have, but if you haven't, we're going to make sure that you hear about all the wonderful work they're doing all across Barbados. It's time now to welcome Letitia Wilcher, who is Senior Mental Health and Addiction Counselor with the Vernon and Marina House. Good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning and thank you.
Good to have you with us. We understand that you are going into the community. You're going to be at Sky Mall this coming weekend. So we're going to get to that shortly. But for those people who don't know, tell us a little bit about Vernon and Marina House.
Yes, good morning and thank you once again for having me here this morning. So Vernon and Marina House are two residential treatment facilities here in Barbados. We're under the umbrella of the Substance Abuse Foundation. So Vernon House has been in existence basically for the last 22 or 23 years. And Marina House, which is our female facility, has been in existence for the last 8 years. And what we do at Vernon and Marina House is that we provide assistance to persons who are suffering from the disease of addiction. And in addition to providing assistance to them, we're also helping their families guide them through the process.
At what stage did we accept or have we accepted in Barbados that addiction is in fact, a disease, it's an epidemic? I know that's now been declared because of the opioid problem in the US, but for a long time, I think a lot of people have thought you can just wake up one day and move away from it. So talk about the work that had to be done or yet has to be done to make people understand that addiction is a whole lot more than we thought through the years.
So a lot of persons think that addiction is a moral failure, and really and truly it is not. Any person who would have started using would have begun as the occasional user, using once a day, and then gradually they would have increased their use to the point where they would have become addicted to a substance. No person wakes up and say, hey, today I'm going to be an addict. Unfortunately, the brain doesn't work that way. The more that you use, the more that you want to gain the substance. And then that creates a problem where you do not think about anything else but utilizing and using that substance. And over the years...
Sorry, continue. You go ahead.
Over the years, although the stigma in Barbados has gone to a stage where some persons have accepted that addiction is a disease, we still have to work every day in the community to share with persons that this is a disease and that persons do need help with the condition that they have.
All right, at what stage do we recognize that we need help? If we're honest, I see so many young people and some older people too, who they wake up every day and they have to go to drugs before they can even start their day. So how do you determine that, I'm at a stage where I might need some help?
Well, really and truly, that's an individual decision. And for some persons, it takes them a short period of time, and for others, it may take them an extensive period of time where the damage to their lives has become so drastic that then they realize that they need some assistance. However, it all depends on the individual and the support that they have around them. It doesn't matter if you can talk from now till Jesus come. If persons don't think that they need the help, they're not going to access it.
So how are you able to access the help through either Vernon House or Marina House?
Okay, so there are two ways that you can access the help from either Verdun or Marina House. For Barbadians, if you think that you need assistance, you can go to the psychiatric hospital. And when you go there, you just inform them that you are interested in attending the Verdun House or Marina House. And they will do their assessments and determine whether you are a suitable candidate. And once they have done their assessments and made the referral to us, then we will do our interview as well. In addition to that, if you do not want, or you're not a citizen of Barbados, because we do have regional and international clients, you can just give us a call and we will do the interview with you, and we will determine whether you are a suitable candidate by conducting our various assessments. And once that is concluded, then the cost is around $16,500 if you want to come in privately.
All right. Do you have, so, that's the bottom line. In order for people to be able to come into the house, they have to themselves decide that they want the help, and not a situation where family members can try to check them into the house?
Yes, they have to definitely decide if they want to come to Verdun or Marina House. It is quite definitely voluntary. The family is suffering the same way that the addict is suffering. It's just that they're not the ones who are picking up the substances. But in terms of all the emotional and the mental stress, and sometimes it takes a physical toll on the family members as well, they're suffering just as much as the individual is suffering. But it's voluntary, and if you don't decide that, today is my day, that I'm going to make that step to change in my life, then all the support from the family is not going to really make a difference in that individual. But I will encourage the family members just to continue to support them, because you don't know if today will be the day that they're going to hear what you are saying.
That definitely can be a difficult thing to do, especially what we know of how drug use can affect the brain. And, you said it earlier, the two are almost always inextricably linked: mental health and, of course, drug abuse. So let's talk about that link. We see so many people who are, really, really addicted, who are on the streets, and then, it becomes a mental health issue. Are the two mutually exclusive, or, are they inextricably linked, mental health and drug abuse?
Well, they're linked. And I just want to make it clear that addiction is no respecter of persons. You have individuals who are on the streets, and then you have individuals who are in the offices who are just as addicted as those who are on the streets. It's just a matter of time before they get to that stage where they begin to lose everything in their lives. So with addiction, it does not matter who you are, where you come from. Definitely no respecter of person. And with regards to the link between mental health and addiction, it is a brain disease. So once the receptors in the brain begin to deteriorate, your mental capacity also deteriorates. So everything begins to go downhill from there once you become dependent on the drug.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the move that you're making into the community and the purpose of that.
So as part of our outreach program, we usually engage in activities within the community. Since COVID, we have not been able to go there as often as we normally would have engaged within the community. So this is just one way of us basically educating the community about Verdun and Marina House, because although we have been in existence for the last 22 plus years, there's still a lot of persons who do not know that these services exist in Barbados. So not only are we a residential facility, but we also have outpatient care, because there's some persons who do not want to come into the facility, and we provide outpatient care where they have access to a counselor, and that can be done virtually, or they can come into the facility. We also have just started Teen Intervene within the last year, where we also provide services to teenagers within the community. We work with these the social workers and the counselors at the various secondary and primary schools to ensure that those children receive some assistance from us. We also provide drug testing within the workplace. We also provide workplace sessions there are myriad of services that we at Verdun and Marina House provide to the community. And this is just our way of sharing with the community some of these services that we provide. And being at Sky Mall is just one of the places that we will be. In addition to sharing about our services, we're going to have professional healthcare professionals who are going to be there to provide counseling if needed, along with providing some health checks. So if you want to get your blood pressure checked, your blood sugar checked, you can also come and get that done while hearing about the various services that we have at Verdun and Marina House.
Let's talk a little bit now about those services that you offer at the house. As is the case with how people have over the years or generally look at drug abuse. When we think of drug abuse, we don't necessarily include things like alcohol. So is alcohol abuse included in the treatment that you offer at the house?
So we are a 12-step facility, and one of the things that we do teach our clients is that alcohol is a drug. So we have as many persons coming into Verdun and Marina House who are suffering from alcoholism as we do persons who would have been suffering from addiction. And I think addiction encompasses everything when we think of drug use. But persons will only probably think that addiction just encompasses maybe cocaine use and crack use and heroin use, etc. But addiction does encompass alcohol. And there's also a process addiction which looks at gambling and drugs. So at Verdun and Marina House, we do not only look at the substance, we look at everything that surrounds and deals with addiction. And also as a mental wellness facility, we also look at addressing depression. We will also look at grief counseling, family and couples counseling. We look at all of those things as we engage with the client, because we cannot just look at the addiction without encompassing everything in a holistic light.
I know you also have a 24-hour helpline, which I think is commendable, is very important. Talk a bit about that.
Okay, so this would have also evolved during the COVID period. And we recognize that with the increase of persons who are reaching out for help, that we really needed to evolve our services. And so with this 24-hour helpline, we have a healthcare professional who answers at any time. If you just want to find out about our services, if you just want to be referred to getting assistance, sometimes persons just call to be heard. And whatever assistance that you need at that point in time, that's why we call it a helpline and not a hotline. We are here to help and provide the assistance that the community requires.
What can we expect when we come on over to your booth this coming weekend?
Well, first of all, you're going to expect to get a friendly smile, a welcome from all of our staff. And as I would have shared earlier, you can get your health checks there as well, along with getting additional information about all of the services that we provide, both residential and outpatient services. And in addition, I didn't mention that we also do interventions within the community. So if you think that your loved one may have a problem, we can come into your home, we can come into the workplace, we can come wherever you need us to come with our staff and provide that assistance that is needed within the community as well.
And again, for those services, do you go ahead and reach out through the helpline, or is there another phone number that you can use to call for that type of assistance?
You can definitely reach out to the helpline, which is 243-0038. And as I said, we have a healthcare professional who answers that line 24/7. If you do not get us at that number, you can call 433-3488. So, but definitely call the helpline. You will be able to reach us much quicker via that form.
I'm really happy to hear that you described it as a mental health and wellness, my words, facility. So really covering the gamut, everything from addiction to depression and other things that can be connected to addiction, but certainly can be separate from addiction. So for people who might be suffering through, or those with relatives who are, I think a great start would be to maybe come to your booth. Some people are a little more shy, so maybe make a phone call to that helpline. Again, thank you so much for your work in the community here in Barbados.
Thank you so very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Excellent. That's Letitia Wiltshire, Senior Mental Health and Addiction Counselor at Verdun and Marina House. So this weekend, make sure you get out. It's on Saturday. The booth is going to be set up at Sky Mall, so make sure you go on through and, ask any questions that you need to be on top of things. Hey, it's heading up to 7 o'clock. It's time for us to update you on the news. Stay with us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
The one is more than a station.
We don't just play music, we keep you company, cheer you up, keep you informed and entertained. We are a vibe. What do you mean?
Every day we bring the party to you.
We are your number one party station.
We love playing music for our listeners. And we're committed to working with our clients and advertisers to make sure that you get the attention that you deserve.
98.1, the one.
Celebrating 18 and still your number one party station.
From the beautiful shores of the gem of the Caribbean, Barbados, home of the amazing Harrison Scale.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's 2 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Wednesday, August 16th. Time for an update of the news. The World Health Organization is expecting an increase in dengue cases worldwide. Here in Barbados, up to mid-July, there were only 7 confirmed cases of dengue fever, but many suspected cases. Dr. Leslie Rollock, Senior Medical Officer of Health, tells the Morning Report that some cases may not make the statistics, as many symptoms are also those of influenza.
Barbados is endemic for dengue, which means we always have cases. When we start to worry is when we have more than expected. And up until this, say, mid-July, we only had 7 confirmed cases. And confirmed cases means we had blood tests on those persons. PCR tests were done on those blood samples, and those blood samples revealed dengue fever virus. However, we've been having many suspected cases, which means persons go to the doctor says, based on your symptoms, I believe that you have dengue. Unfortunately, many of them are not doing blood tests, so we don't have a lot of confirmed cases, but we have many suspected cases for the year. We don't have a lot of hospitalized confirmed cases either. So around this time of the year, we expect numbers to increase. But as far as to say that we have an outbreak situation, I really can't say, even though we are seeing increased numbers of suspected cases.
Dr. Rollock couldn't give any specific reasons for why individuals do not test, but they have been asking doctors to encourage patients to be tested in order to get a more accurate national picture.
I would encourage the physicians that see these patients, if they believe that they have dengue, to take a blood sample, especially if that blood sample is taken within 5 days of the onset of symptoms. If it gets to the lab in a good time, we would be able to do PCR tests on it and be able to tell that person definitively whether they have dengue or not. Because the symptoms of dengue are similar to symptoms, some of them for influenza, for example, body aches, headache, fever. And until with influenza, the person develops a cough or some other respiratory signs, it's difficult to say what they have. So the issue may be that if they go to a private doctor, they may have to pay more for it. But in the public sector, they don't have to pay more for it. They may just not want a blood draw. but it would help us to know what is going on if we had a few more, not everyone, but if we had a few more blood tests to work with.
Now, the main type of dengue being presented has been the type 1 virus, but as Dr. Rawlock explains, there are 4 types, and depending on what the patient had before, it could lead to more severe cases.
Each of those individual types gives you regular dengue. Some persons are infected and they have no symptoms at all. Then each of those individual viruses can give you moderate symptoms, and each of those individual viruses can give you severe symptoms. So it is not the type, the virus itself that determines whether you get hemorrhagic fever, not usually. However, because there are 4 types, if you get dengue fever with type 1, for example, you should be immune to type 1. You should never get type 1 again in your life. It will may give you partial protection from type 2. But if you get type 2 dengue and you have had type 1, the antibodies that you had developed to type 1 to protect you may not protect you fully and may actually increase the risk of you getting more severe dengue. And some of the manifestations of that severe dengue may include hemorrhagic signs, which is hemorrhagic dengue. So there's no dengue virus that is a hemorrhagic dengue virus. All of them may cause hemorrhagic disease.
The doctor says the entire country is a watch area for the Aedes aegypti mosquito, and she's encouraging everyone to get rid of water collection areas because these are the breeding sites. The Ministry of Health is also keeping up with its fogging program to deal with the adult mosquitoes. Meanwhile, in Bangladesh's ongoing 2023 dengue epidemic season, the country has been witnessing the deadliest outbreak of dengue fever. The Directorate there of Health Services have reported 87,891 hospitalizations and 416 deaths due to the Aedes aegypti mosquito-borne tropical disease. And that's today's news. Remember, we have an update of news coming your way at 12 noon here on TV8, and we have the World at 1 that follows on our radio network of stations. More Morning Barbados after this break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
From the beautiful shores of the gem of the Caribbean, Barbados, home of the amazing Harrison's Cave, the tantalizing Oystins Bay Garden, our historic garrison, the indigenous road tennis, and the friendliest people in the world. We are 94.7 FM, the ultimate Bajan experience.
We enjoy a game with Dominoes and singing karaoke.
I just love cruise.
When you love me just a little bit longer.
You get to relax and have a drink and listen to some nice music.
It's something different. It's spectacular. It's fabulous. You know, it's a different feeling altogether.
I never feel so good in a party yet.
Follow me to Q in the Community this Thursday.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
9 minutes after 7 o'clock. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday morning. Some people would say it's hump day. That means it's halfway through the week. But I don't know if it's harder to get past the first half or the second half of the week. That's if you're dividing it into halves. I don't know, whatever it is, I certainly hope you're having a great day today. It's about to get better as we welcome Nicholas Roberts, who of course is president of the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados, to Morning Barbados. Always good to see you, Nicholas. And today we're discussing something that's of particular interest at this time, year round, but now it seems to be even more timely to talk about mental health and self-care based on what's happening in communities all across Barbados and what we're seeing in the U.S. As a matter of fact, the U.S. just released some statistics which say that last year, 2022, was the deadliest year for them in terms of suicide. The numbers are truly overwhelming, and I know we're feeling the effects here in Barbados as well. And these people aren't just family members, they're also workers who are in our offices and in various ministries and workplaces across Barbados. So let's talk about where HR comes in, first of all, in helping the employees to build and maintain good and sound mental wellness.
Hi, morning, Tisha. So I'm glad that you actually phrased the conversation with the statistics. So you're correct in terms of HR plays a part when it comes to maintaining the wellness of employees. I often say organizations do not operate within a vacuum because they are a microcosm of what is happening within society. So as HR practitioners and HR departments, and not only HR leaders within the organization, we have a duty to employees to understand what it is that is going on within their personal lives. And that is why I always advocate. It may seem very simple but at a baseline, we need to be having a conversation with our employees to understand what is going on with them, and then past understanding what is going on with them, because HR practitioners, leaders can only do but so much. We need to be employing the help of mental health practitioners, whether it be a psychiatrist, a psychologist, to come in to assist our employees to better cope and handle what is going on with them within their personal lives and within the professional space and the professional environment.
Absolutely. At what stage do you kind of move into action, though? Is it a situation where you have to wait for employees to come to you, or should HR practitioners or professionals be actively looking at how employees are doing across the board?
So I know organizations do a lot of training in terms of training their managers to see the signs of employees that are not doing well. And then sometimes when an employee or a manager has a good relationship, the manager can recognize, you know what, this person isn't operating how they usually operate, whether it be at a personal level or a professional level, in terms of they're not giving the outputs that they usually give, or they're not their usual upbeat selves. And even if they're not an upbeat personality, if they're coming into the office and they seem withdrawn, they're not interacting with people, they're just to themselves. There's a lot of training that, both from, like I said, a professional level, and having the emotional intelligence to recognize that this person is not having the best time within their professional space and they're not operating at their optimum. So when it is that you can see things are not necessarily right with a person, sometimes based on observation, you have to approach these things very carefully, because there are some persons that, you may approach them and you may have the conversation with them and they may open up, but then there are other persons that may get defensive or they may retreat and they may not choose to share with what is going on with you. I think, like I said, being observational of what is going on with your employees and seeing if you can have those conversations with them is very, very important. And then on the other hand, there are some persons that will come right home and come to you, whether it be coming to the HR department at offload, and will say, you know what, this is what is going on with me. This is why I have been the way that I am, and they share. And that is where then at that point, then we can, whether is they come to us or we observe, that we can recommend them seeking professional help. Because like I said, we only have but so many tools within our arsenal as HR practitioners, as management leaders, to help our employees. When it goes into the realm of psychology and psychiatry, we are not professionals in that space, and we do not profess to be. So that is then where you start to lean on, like I said, mental health practitioners to see how it is they could assist the employees to the best of their ability.
Well, that's a great segue, a great point for us to bring Dr. Naya Mon into the conversation, who's a general adult psychiatrist, to share a little bit more about how we can, work through some of these challenges. Good morning to you, Dr. Mon. Always good to see you. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Apologies for the delay in joining you.
That's okay. You are here at the perfect time. You came on just in time for where you should be. So, let's start with, with the basics. Mental health and self-care. How important are these two for people who are in not only high stress workplaces, but all workplaces?
Yes. Well, what mental health is health, right? And we know that the mind and body are connected. So when we talk about health, it is inclusive of all the domains that make us human, our physical side or the biological side, mental or psychological, social, and spiritual. And each domain has to be nurtured in order for us to maintain wellness. So looking after our health in general would include mental health. And mental health is essentially how we think, how we feel, how we behave, how we relate to ourselves and to each other and to enjoy life. So it is really that the mind, like I said, the mind and body are connected. So it's a component of all of us, which determines how we function in our daily lives and make a contribution. So it determines how we adapt and how we are resilient to challenges and uncertainty. And the workplace is a part of that system in which we function. We know that education, career, workplace forms a big chunk of our life pie, essentially. Our world is oriented in that way, and that we have to be producing, we have to be working. So what we want to do is to be able to function. So we want to promote health, which includes mental health. And a part of that is looking at how do we invest in that. So, and we look at it at all the levels. And we start with self-care. So self-care, I think, has become broader now, broader over time. It is not simply just looking after our, personal hygiene or taking a break after a long week of work. It is actually inclusive of all the dimensions of health. So it is really that intentional actions that we take to nourish all aspects of our health. So mind, body, and spirit.
Well, definitely, lots to think about because, as you mentioned, when we think about it in a very superficial way, it feels as though, self-care is just take care of how you look or how you smell, how you feel, get your feet done and hands. But as you rightly said, it's so much more than that. Nicholas, what are we doing in HR offices when the challenges that our employees are experiencing come from within our organizations? How do HR professionals tackle through things like this?
So as an HR professional, we often look at the technical side of HR, and I won't go into those, but a huge component of being an HR practitioner is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is just having the ability to empathize with people. You need to understand what it is they're going through and be that listening ear for them. Taking it a step further, as I mentioned before Dr. Mon joined us, we can only do but so much because we're trained in understanding human behavior from an organizational perspective and helping organizations achieve the best results through people. But when it gets into the realm of, like I said, the psychiatry and the psychology of it, that is why organizations have or should have employee assistance programs. And these programs are programs where we recommend employees to professionals like Dr. Mon or the psychiatrists within Barbados or psychologists, that employees can go and tap into those resources to speak to those professionals, to have a conversation about what is going on in their professional lives. And sometimes when in very direct cases, and Dr. Moore can speak on this, sometimes when it gets past the part of having those conversations and giving those coping mechanisms to people to cope within the workplace and within their lives, sometimes people need to, to be medicated or to go on medication. And that, like I said, is not an area that we as HR practitioners can get into. That is why we leave it to the professionals, and we lean on programs such as employee assistance programs to assist employees in getting the help that they need, because it is only through those programs that I think are very valuable. And when organizations don't use them, we do not get the best out of our employees, because when employees are having issues and they come and they offload on their HR practitioners, or they come and offload on their managers can only give tips and advice from their point of view. But I think it is through speaking to the professionals, they can really take it to the next level to help people to operate better within their lives, both professionally and personally.
Great place for you to come in, Dr. Mon. What are some of the things that organizations need to do to be able to assist employees, people generally, in their overall well-being?
Yeah, what I've found, or my experience with the employee assistance program, as Nicholas said, it comes at the point when there are problems. When there's a crisis, and then you want to try to treat that. But I think the emphasis ought to be on prevention and promoting mental health, and having the general sense that if we want to have efficient, happy, productive employees, then you have to ensure that their health is taken care of, and wellness is the focus, essentially. So there ought to be regular programs within the workplace that promote the awareness of mental health and health in general, allowing people the time to have regular breaks, having professionals like myself come into the workplace and have regular talks and discussions. There ought to be flexibility with the work. I think we've been through the pandemic and realized that we can do a lot of things without being in the workplace. And I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater and dismiss some of the gains that we've made, or that the pandemic actually has shown us. And people should, I believe, be afforded choice to become more autonomous in how they work. If the work allows that they can work remotely, then allow them to have that flexibility to be able to work remotely, because then you're helping them to also find that grounding in balance in all the other areas of their life, because life is not just work, right? There are other aspects of us that determines who we are. So when we want to promote self-care in the workplace, then it's really promoting or allowing people to be able to have time to build all the other aspects of themselves.
Excellent. Nicholas, last word is yours, Mr. President. How do you elevate discussion to the place in the workplace where people feel more at ease, or feel more like they should engage in self-care and pay more attention to their mental health and well-being?
Mm-hmm. Great. So I think it's both a societal and organizational way that we need to tackle this. So from a macro level, there are laws that have been put in place, like the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act that was enacted in 2020, putting those laws in place to prevent discrimination within the workplace, whether it be people that are dealing with mental health challenges or people that are just, struggling from whatever aspect they're struggling with life. Those laws need to be put in place. Also, the culture of a society, I think, is very crucial, because the national culture shapes the organizational cultures, and I think we need to be more collectivist and individualistic within how we operate within Barbados and across the world at large, because we're seeing many people have become much more focused on themselves and not looking to see how it is that they can help others. So putting those resources in terms of, as I mentioned, whether it be healthcare practitioners, mental health services from a national standpoint, so that when it is that then we recommend them to employees within the organization, that it is not a taboo thing for people to tap into them, or people within the workplace are not being ostracized if it pops up, or it is known that people have mental health challenges. So I think, like I said, it's a multifaceted thing. We need to deal with it both from the societal standpoint and then within the organization. And having workload management is also a very important thing within the workplace. Just not overloading our employees so that they don't feel as if they're a burden, because as Dr. Moore mentioned, life is more than work, and when it is that we put too much on our employees within the workplace, that can compound the issues or make it worse, the issues that they may have within their personal lives. So dealing with it from those both aspects, I think would be the starting point to tackling mental health as well as self-care going forward within Barbados and across the wider region.
And Nicholas, I think that's a great segue into what should be our next topic, talking about helping employees to be able to grapple with and work toward a reasonable workload, something they can manage, because there are many employees who don't know how to leave the work at the gate, whether it's their gate at home or the gate at work. I want to thank you so much, Nicholas Roberts, President of the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados, and of course you, Dr. Naya Mon, General Adult Psychiatrist. I'm holding back on asking you, Dr. Mon, how girls are doing. Can't help myself. Oh, that is wonderful. I'll reserve the other personal questions for later. Have a good day, guys.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Always wonderful conversation. So remember, self-care is very, very important. Make sure you take care of yourselves. We're going to take a break. When we come back, very interesting discussion is coming up. Big question for you. Do black girls travel too? We'll find out in a moment. Stay with us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
CBC is celebrating 60 years of broadcasting in Barbados. A friend and a helping hand in the community. CBC, connecting Barbadian communities. It's Matchday Live from the 246 with host Damian Best. Your all-access pass to the action happening in the BFA Premier League and beyond. Every last Monday of the month on CBC TV8. Kickoff time, 8:30 p.m. with analysis from our panel and highlights of the top performances. You can weigh in on the discussion via WhatsApp on 228.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So just about 26 minutes after 7 o'clock on this beautiful Wednesday morning, we had some early morning showers, but that's A-okay. You know we love the rain to cool down the heat. This morning early, I don't know if you heard the weather, but I was telling you at 6 o'clock, it was around 28 degrees Celsius already. So we know it's going to be a warm day in Barbados. The relative humidity, if memory serves me correctly, was in the early 80s. So make sure you hydrate, make sure, you know, people of our complexion need a little care too when it comes to making sure you have the protection from the sun. So get on your sunblock and things like that, particularly if you're going out to the beach or if you're working in the open sunshine. Now let me welcome a lady whom I only met yesterday, but I mean, we talked so extensively, I feel like I know her already. So let me say good morning to and welcome to Danny Rivers Mitchell, founder and CEO of Black Girls Travel 2, and also founder of Serving in Paradise Foundation. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so good to have you with us today, Danny. If we could start at the purple hair. You know, that's a great place to start. Is that a crop overdue, or are you generally just, you know, so happy and open and ready for everything that comes in life that you're like purple hair this week?
Well, I tell you, it's not a crop overdue, but it's so fitting, right?
Absolutely.
It's my signature look. I decided once I stepped away from corporate that I really wanted to dive into who I am from a fashion standpoint. And I dove very deeply, and purple is one of my favorite colors, and I tried a thing. My mother would say otherwise, but I tried a thing and I fell in love with it. And I tried to go back to my original color, which is black, but the world will not allow me to. They are so accustomed to the purple, so they expect it. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into Black Girls Travel Too, which is a company formed, I believe, about 8 years ago. And ironically, you're going to tell the story of how it started, but the very first trip was here to Barbados. So let's hear this story.
So back in 2013 was my first time ever hearing of Barbados and actually having an opportunity to come and visit. I was the assistant to Ona Brown, which is Les Brown's daughter, which is a motivational speaker. And I had an opportunity to come here with her over a 9-day period. And she did speaking and training for Coverly Medical. And I also had an opportunity to speak at Combermere Secondary School. And during that time, I met a vendor on the West Coast who kind of prophesied it over my life and said that you're going to do amazing things in life, but you're going to do exceptional things in Barbados. At the time, I had no idea what she was talking about. I left Barbados thinking I would never return, and 2 years later, I started a company called Black Girls Travel Too, and my first trip was here in Barbados for Crop Over 2015.
What do you think drove you to come up with the concept for Black Girls Travel Too? As an African American, yeah, I would imagine that based on your experience and what you would have seen, that probably was a part of it.
Well, let me be 100% clear. Growing up, I'm originally from Mobile, Alabama. Travel was never a part of my mindset, my vocabulary, because I grew up in an overlooked and underserved community and surrounded by poverty, so we never really did things like that and did not know that it was accessible. Someone came into my life in the 7th grade, a school counselor, for a short period of time. She created an experience to Washington, D.C. I thankfully had an opportunity to be a part of that experience, and I remember very vividly boarding a 54-passenger bus that drove from Mobile, Alabama to Washington, D.C. It was probably about a 16-hour trip. I don't know what happened to the other 53 people that was on that bus, but I know what it did for me. Being able to enter into Washington, D.C. and Virginia, I had an opportunity to see Black people that look like me, doing exceptional things, walking out of beautiful buildings, dressing with an essence of authority. And because of that experience, I grabbed onto that and held that vision and took it back with me to Mobile, Alabama. And I vowed, if they can do it, I can do it too. I didn't know exactly what they did to get there, but I knew I had saw it because of travel. And to bring us up to where we are now, I entered into the military. That was the only way that I knew how to get out of Mobile, Alabama. I did 4.5 years in the United States Army and then had an opportunity to travel internationally. I lived as far as Seoul, Korea for almost 2 years. Very thankful for that experience. But after getting out of the military, I really sat with myself because I wasn't really fulfilled. And I did a crossover moment, meaning I sat down and I thought back, how did I get here? What was that one decision that had propelled me from the inner cities of Mobile, Alabama to where I am now? And it was travel. It has always been travel. And so I thought to myself, what if I created an opportunity for women that look just like me to be able to travel the world? What if I can do for them what was done for me? And that's how Black Girls Travel Too came about.
Now, you're not one of these people who is just coming into Barbados and showing off the beautiful places or sharing what you've heard about it, or as we would define the touristy destinations. You are also finding your way into the communities in Barbados, and this is one of the reasons why you formed the foundation that you did, which is Take Me to Paradise?
Serving in
Paradise. Yes.
I'll tell you, it's funny enough that you bring that up. I actually came up with that title or our company name here in Barbados. We have been facilitating and running experiences for 2 years here in Barbados under the Black Girls Travel to umbrella. And during that time, I desperately was seeking to do more. And I would question or ask questions to those individuals who had the power to direct me into certain areas in regards to volunteering. So I would have, reached out to like BTMI and individuals like that, trying to understand how we could do more in regards to volunteering, because oftentimes tourists just come to destinations and they take. Black Girls Travel Too is not about that. We want to, of course, enjoy the destination, but we want to leave the destination better than we came. So within that, I was connected with an amazing woman by the name of Santia Bradshaw. I remember Nicholas Alene said, you need to speak with this powerful woman by the name of Santia Bradshaw. She has a heart very similar to yours in terms of giving back. And I was like, okay. She met me in the Gap at Ocean 2 Hotel, and we sat in the foyer and we spoke about our similar interests and our passions in regards to children and giving back. And then she was able to take me into the Pine community. And when I went into the Pine community, at that moment I said, this is it. This is where I want to give back. Now, to speed up with coming up with the name Servant in Paradise Foundation, there's a young girl, at the time she was 8, her name is Anaya. And when I was volunteering in the Pine, she had a t-shirt on that says, take me to paradise. And I looked at her t-shirt and I said, why do you have that t-shirt on? She says, I love it and I want to go to paradise. I said, but you live in paradise. And she says, no, I don't. I said, you don't understand that we view Barbados as paradise. She says, well, I'm Barbadian and I don't view it as paradise. That broke my heart. I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but that broke my heart. And at that moment I said, I'm gonna create a nonprofit where we're gonna call it Serving in Paradise. I feel myself getting emotional. And from 2017 all the way up until now, we've been facilitating experiences very intentionally under the Serving in Paradise Foundation, because we do understand that money comes into destinations, but it very seldomly make it into communities such as the Pine. Yeah. So I made it my mission to facilitate these experiences and to intentionally pour into these communities that are overlooked and underserved, because it's very similar to how I grew up. So that is why I'm so passionate about serving here in Barbados. Sorry for getting emotional.
No, that's A-okay, and I totally understand what's happening and how you feel. It truly is. It's true, really, that in some of these communities you don't necessarily feel as though you are, as Barbadians, benefiting from what other people are benefiting from, or seeing Barbados from the perspective that people who visit Barbados do. So I'd like to commend you on this foundation, on developing this foundation, on seeking to help more Barbadians realize and recognize that they truly are in paradise. Let's talk about a few of the initiatives that you've been able to undertake on this passion journey of yours.
Well, thank you. As recently as June, we were able to plant 31 fruit trees in the Pine. And what was so amazing about that is that not only were we able to plant the trees, the locals of the community also came out to assist. We also spent time in the Pine. We roasted breadfruit. A lot of the individuals who traveled with us, they had never had breadfruit prepared in such an authentic way. Right? We were able to lime and dance and party with the locals, and it felt extremely safe. You may not be aware of this, but our travel.state.gov website in the US communicates that there are certain communities within Barbados that we should not visit, and the Pine is one of them. every time I come to Barbados, which is between 15 to 18 times a year, I spend 50% of my time in the Pine. And I'm not saying that bad things don't happen there, but I've never had an issue. I've always been embraced and accepted and taken care of while in the Pine, right? And so I like to encourage individuals that visit Barbados that step outside of the touristy things. Embrace Barbados on a whole nother level. I believe what makes Barbados so amazing is the interaction that you have with the locals. Barbados would not be anything without the Barbadian people.
Now, I know that you've created many experiences, not only for people to come here to Barbados, but you've taken women with you around the world. I think what makes your brand so exceptional is there are a lot of people who might want to travel, but the thought of traveling alone or going to places that they're not sure about. You made reference to advisories being given on the website of the U.S. government website. And of course, people will revert to things like that to be able to determine how safe a destination might be. So you offer this authentic experience where you can share more about where they're going, but more importantly, as we were saying, Bajan parlance, they have a little company.
Yes, absolutely.
In going too.
Absolutely. We don't just facilitate the experiences or curate the experiences. We actually go on the experiences with the experiencers or the travelers who have decided to invest in such an experience. But even before we get to promoting or marketing the experience, we spend anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks within the destination, vetting the destination. A couple things that we have to guarantee before we decide to launch an experience is that it's safe for Black people. Number 2, it's safe for women, right? And number 3, that it has substance. And we utilize that formula for every single destination. There have been some destinations that I deem that would not be safe for women and Black people, period. And so we don't offer those experiences at all. The safety of those individuals who decide to travel with us is our number 1 priority. Black Girls Travel 2 is more than just about travel. It's about unity, it's about community, it's about sisterhood, it's about access and enhancing one's perspective on life. The world is truly our oyster, and we're just here to help facilitate those experiences for us.
Excellent. Talk to me about some of these experiences. I know we talked a lot about what you've done here in Barbados, but certainly there might be other places, a small possibility that there might be other places that have impacted you in a similar way.
Well, you can't compare Barbados to any other destination.
I can agree with that. We can end the conversation right there.
But I will say, South Africa is neck and neck almost. We facilitate experiences in South Africa, between October and November and at the top of the year. And they're absolutely amazing experiences, mind-blowing experiences. We're also in Thailand, Spain, specifically Madrid. We facilitate experiences in Grenada, Bermuda, and the list goes on and on. Now, it has been brought to my attention that we have some Bayesians that would love to go to Greece, specifically Santorini. So we're going to work on that to make sure that we can also accommodate our followers and travelers from Barbados. We're also doing Thailand. Currently, I think we have about 3 to 4 Bayesians that have decided to travel with us this November all the way to Thailand, and we are so elated about that. I do want to convey that although we are a U.S.-based company, we have Black women to travel with us from literally all over the world. This past crop over, we had a young lady all the way from France who came all the way from France just to participate within the Black Girls Travel to experience her crop over.
Yeah, how many people did you bring to crop over this year with you?
Listen, it felt like 100, but it was over 30. It was over 30. Visually beautiful, and I must say that I feel like we're just getting started. We're almost approaching 10 years of being in business and providing global exploration, but I feel like we're just getting started.
You absolutely are. I want to thank you for your time, and this most certainly is not the end. We have lots more work to do together. Absolutely. So Danny Rivers Mitchell, founder and CEO of Black Girls Travel 2 and founder of the Serving in Paradise Foundation, which was founded right here in Barbados and came out of an experience that she had here in the Pine. And here she is back in the Pine with us.
Yes.
Good to have you with us. Hey, we're going to take another break and come on back on Morning Barbados. Stay with us.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's Match Day Live from the 246 with host Damian Best. Your all-access pass to the action happening in the BFA Premier League and beyond. Every last Monday of the month on CBC TV8. Kickoff time, 8:30 p.m. with analysis from our panel and highlights of the top performances. You can weigh in on the discussion via WhatsApp on 228-5562. It's Match Day Live from the 246. Don't you miss it.
My friend, you don't plan to get it? Oh, Barbados. Hey, I'm KB Clean. Join me 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. right here at 94.7, the best and ultimate Bajan experience. My show is called Bajan to the Bone. Don't miss it, Bajan to the Bone. Weekdays right here.
16 and a half before 8 o'clock. We have to welcome Dr. Paul Rouse, or urologist. I almost said resident urologist. Always great to have you in Doc Talk. And of course, we're talking men's health. We want to make sure that men are taking care of themselves. And we're going to look at urological symptoms that men definitely should not ignore today. So good morning and welcome, Dr. Rouse.
Good morning, and thanks for having me this morning again. Not only for men this morning, it's all about men and women. This is, unfortunately, the last few weeks I have seen some patients who had clear urological symptoms that they have been ignoring for several weeks to months in some cases, and that can be potentially serious. It doesn't mean that every single time it is something very, very serious, but because sometimes a lot of these symptoms are common, we tend to, get on with it, get on with our lives, and tend to ignore them until the symptoms become very troublesome, and then seek medical attention. So if you could put up probably the first slide, really, is these three common symptoms that I thought I would touch on this morning, namely flank pain. This is pain in the area of on the side, just below the rib cage, just with the spine. We call that renal angle, but extending around anteriorly is your flank. And on either side, and this is actually a very common symptom, and in a lot of cases, it's nothing to be worried about. But then the other big symptom that I'm concerned about, that a lot of people tend to ignore, and understandably they're very concerned when they do see it, is visible blood in the urine. This is when you actually see the blood in the urine. Understandably, this is very scary initially, and when it does settle, a lot of patients are actually quite relieved. And all too often, though, I do see patients who see the blood in the urine, they know it's not right. It settles after a day or two, and then they kind of ignore it because they're saying, okay, it's all settled, nothing to be worried about. So this is one of the common symptoms that I really think that patients, both men and women, boys and girls for that matter, so if you do see it in the childhood age group, they really need to see their pediatrician as well, that you should not ignore, especially when it's not associated with pain. Both actually are very important. When you have visible blood in the urine with pain, that's usually more indicative of kidney stone or stone disease. But when you don't have pain, but you see blood in your urine, you always get worried about, unfortunately, cancer arising from the urinary tract. And then the other problem is recurrent urinary tract infections. This is a lot more common in women, and certainly as you get older, this really should be investigated. Yes, in sexually active women, it's a lot more common, but you can have it without having sex. But when you do see it, especially when it's recurrent, we consider recurrent urinary tract infections is when you're having 3 or more infections in a 3-month period. 6-month period. You really should be seeing your doctor to have this investigated. So these are the 3 common symptoms that I see a lot when in my clinics, where patients do have these symptoms, they're concerned about them, but somehow always tend to the doctor for whatever reason.
All right, so let's break it down, because for some people, I know you explain where the flank is, but I know we have a graph that describes precisely where you can find your flanks. And let's describe this pain, because you know, some people are saying, but what type of pain and precisely where? So describe it for us, doctor.
Well, as you can see there in the cartoon, it's either on the right or the left side, and it's really that, as I said, the angle below the lower bit of your rib cage and in the angle with your spine. That is what we call the renal angle, but it can extend around anteriorly, as you can see there, just below the rib cage. We call that area the flank. That's usually characteristic of pain arising in the kidney area or the upper part of the ureter. This pain can be constant, so from a urological point of view, when it's constant, it tends to suggest possible obstruction of the kidney, or when it's associated with fever, being unwell, and blood in your urine, is usually suggestive of kidney infection, or what we call pyelonephritis. But actually, the most common cause for pain in this area is actually, unfortunately, as we get older, we all get some osteoarthritis, and what we call musculoskeletal. And that is probably the most common cause of it, and nothing to be worried about. But there's no harm in seeing your GP, getting an ultrasound scan, and making sure that it's nothing else to be concerned about. I just lost that train of thought there a second. But the other key thing there, although yes, I talk about flank pain, quite frankly, persistent pain in your tummy, especially in the distribution of your urinary tract, should really be investigated. So the other common area you can have pain related to urinary tract is just below the belly button, above the pubic bone, what we call suprapubic pain, and that is also common with urological problems. Now, the problem with pain is not specific for urological system. It could be from your bowel, as I mentioned, it can be from your muscle and joints. On the right hand side, you have your liver, your bowel over there, and then on the left hand side, similarly, you have your bowel, the descending colon as well. So therefore, it is whenever you go to your doctor, so I'm encouraging people first to see their GPs if they have pain that they're concerned about, to have that initial assessment by your GP. And in a lot of cases, it's nothing to be concerned about, but certainly once it's persistent, once it's disrupting your normal activities, you should really get it investigated. Make sure it's nothing to be concerned about. Vast majority of cases it isn't, and we don't need to take it any further than your GP. But if it's related to your urinary system, they'll refer to me, or bowel to the colorectal appropriately.
Yeah, now I know that you mentioned quite a few of the conditions that could be as a result of the flank pain. You know, foremost, you talked about the musculoskeletal and the renal tumor and things like that. But we see a lot of people presenting with things like kidney stones. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So the characteristic symptom of that will be pain associated with non-visible hematuria, and it tends to come and go, or what we call colic. It comes in spasms where you get pain, it settles, sort of waving, part of the classic presentation of kidney stones. Usually because kidney stones, the pain is very, very disruptive, very, very painful. You really do, in most cases, actually patients do seek medical attention pretty much right away when you have acute renal colic or ureteric colic. However, though, you can have stone disease where it causes a constant dull ache or discomfort in the area of the kidney rather than that classic acute pain. And that's the danger. It can be quite big stones, and it's surprisingly how sometimes you can have big 2, 3, 4 centimeter stones with very little pain or discomfort, and they're just sitting there in the kidney and potentially actually causing trouble, because what happens is the problem with kidney stones is that degree of obstruction of your kidney, and it slowly over a period of time, not days or weeks, but over months to years, can cause damage to your kidney. So kidney stones is actually one of the readily reversible or treatable causes of chronic kidney disease. Therefore, it would be always good to diagnose that and treat the stones appropriately.
And one of those things that really should jump people to action that you said a lot of people don't look into is urine in the blood. And you said there can be a situation where it's painful and another situation where it is not. And I would imagine that if it isn't painful, then people might overlook it.
Yeah, that's when there's visible blood with pain, yes, most patients do seek medical attention right away. A lot of the common things being common is usually either acute pyelonephritis, or it can be a kidney stone, so they usually get that sorted. The one I find the dangerous one is when there's no pain. When they see blood, obviously they're quite shocked initially, but when it does resolve, they're so and they're just worried. I think they just really false sense of security or etc. Okay, whatever it is, it's nothing to be concerned about. But no, I think this is one symptom that I see all too often. Sometimes patients having intermittent blood in the urine for several months on occasions before they seek medical attention. So that is one I would really like to hammer home, in that if you have painless, visible blood in your urine, you should really see your general practitioner initially, just to get that initial assessment. And if it's something that needs to be flagged up to your friendly urologist, we will be happy to see you. The real danger with this is that it can represent, I don't want to scare people, cancer of the urinary system, but a lot of simple tests like a CT scan or ultrasound scan can easily rule out that it's anything serious. The real problem with cancer, especially the kidney, is that it is quite asymptomatic a lot of the times before you actually present. So it's therefore really wise to pick it up early. It does mean that, unfortunately, we'll be doing several scans, sometimes several hundred scans, before we actually pick up that one person with a kidney. But it is important, though, that we do pick it up early, because, unfortunately, kidney cancer is one of the most fatal cancers, especially when it spreads outside.
And finally, you talked about recurrent UTIs and what that can point to.
I think in men, we kind of I think a lot of men really do know that when they see that oh gosh, that's something not right. So they really do seek their attention of their general practitioners. Usually, mostly common things being common is usually an enlarged prostate causing obstruction to the flow. You don't empty your bladder fully, you get recurrent infections. But unfortunately, in women, we see it a lot because it's very common in women that they get urinary tract infections, and they kind of just live with it. I'm sure they speak to their girlfriends. Oh yeah, I've had a UTI before, and they tend to ignore it. But certainly, as you get on in age, I would say certainly above the age of 40, you should have at least that initial ultrasound scan to make sure that nothing serious is going on with your urinary system. And in younger women as well, even though you're getting recurrent infections, you should have that initial assessment. Again, I'm stressing, see your GP first. A lot of the times it's nothing to be overly concerned about. They usually will do the basic testing, especially like an ultrasound, just to make sure there's no abnormality of the urinary system. And a lot of the times they can hopefully just reassure you. But if there's a problem with the system, urinary retention, obstruction, stone disease, etc., or very rarely sometimes a tumor of the urinary system, they will flag it up to us, the urologist, and we will help manage it appropriately.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Paul Rouse, urologist, for sharing with us today. Definitely food for thought. And the three things you should walk away from this conversation considering today: are you having flank pain? Are you seeing blood in your urine? Or are you experiencing recurrent UTIs? Then it's time for you to see your doctor and maybe by extension your urologist. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning. We're going to take another break and come back with a feel-good story that you won't want to miss.
My friend, you don't plan to get it? Oh, Barbados. Hey, I'm KB Clean. Join me 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. right here at 94.7, the best and ultimate Bajan experience. My show is called Bajan to the Bone. Don't miss it, Bajan to the Bone. Weekdays right here and only here on 94.7.
For the past 19 years, QFM has been sharing with you, learning from you, and together building a community for all mature audiences. That's why we say Q is good for you. To our Q family, we say thank you for staying connected to Q 100.7 FM. QFM is a station of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. CBC, celebrating 60, connecting Barbadian communities.
While you go about your business, we go about our business, and that is gathering the news. Stay up to date at CBC News Barbados on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get news update on radio throughout the day. And join us for the CBC News Night at 7 every night. CBC News team is on the job and bringing you the news.
There is a saying you can find.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Now, the CBU Awards is one of those things we look forward to every single year, and for last year's productions, CBC came out on top as a big winner at the recently staged competition, where one of our very own took Top Producer of the Year.
So here are your nominees for Best Producer, ladies and gentlemen.
RJ Arglina, Giovanni Dennis.
Now I said, oh look, this is where we had reached, this is where we got stuck. How do we get out of this pothole?
PBCJ, Carol Francis.
Prime symbol of the collective memory of India. It's described as a declaration of India's glory and power.
Great Belize Productions, Hurricane Lisa coverage.
St. John's Biani. This is me standing, and this is only after a short period of rains.
CBC Barbados, Doriel
Yes, everybody to the Garson, and we have a good time.
So Best Producer, ladies and gentlemen, the award goes to winner Doriel M. Vaughan of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, Barbados. And in the absence of a representative of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, Barbados, we invite as ever, Madame S.G. Sonia Gill to accept the award.
Congratulations again to Doriel, doing big things, well deserved, good work. That's it for us from today. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to take you on a tour of the Barbados Olympic Association's Olympic Museum. It's a tour coming up, we'll tell you more. Plus, we're talking students in transition as we look from primary to secondary school, and we are also going to delve into what the St. James South Neighborhood Watch is doing. That's it from us for today. Remember to wear your smiles as you go through your day, and be sure to come on back tomorrow. On behalf of the entire team, bye-bye. Have a good day.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you.